Welcome to Muscles and Magic the Gathering. Now, me, Bobby Maximus, your host, I am the Muscles and the Magic the Gathering. It's these cards right here. And speaking of these cards, today you came here because you wanted to learn more about Merfolk, one of my favorite kinfolk, type creatures or type groups in the Magic the Gathering universe. And when it comes to Merfolk, there's only one commander that you should be using, and it is Kumena, the Tyrant of Orazca. It is the best Merfolk commander by far, and during this video, I'm going to teach you why. I'm also going to teach you the cards to use, the synergies to use, the strategies you're going to play, and so much more. And the best part of it all, these cards are all part of my personal collection. There's no proxies. There's no graphics on screen. These are actually cards I own. I actually own over 50 complete commander decks that are on par with this deck right here. So stay tuned. You're going to be blown away. Whether you're here to learn or just for a little bit of entertainment, this is the place for you. But back to business, because you came here to learn. So let's talk about Kumena. Kumena's abilities. First of all, it's blue and green, so it's a Simic commander. If you tap another untapped Merfolk you control, Kumena becomes unblockable. If you tap 3 untapped Merfolk you control, you draw a card. That can be useful for drawing. Drawing is a massive, massive part of the commander game. Card advantage is everything. There's no deck that I can think of where you don't want more card advantage. And with this deck, we're going to have tons of Merfolk on the battlefield, so we're going to be drawing a lot of cards. And then finally, if you tap 5 untapped Merfolk you control, put a 1/1 counter on each Merfolk you control. So a lot of Merfolk synergy. This is a great commander. And as you guessed it, a lot of this deck is going to be built around 1/1 counters. Planeswalkers. Our first Planeswalker and our only Planeswalker is Kiora, Master of the Depths. All right, so Kiora's ability, it's going to come out with 4 loyalty counters. If you +1 it, and you can do that right away, untap up to 1 target creature and up to 1 target land. There's a lot of things in this deck that are going to untap my creatures to make better use of Kumena's abilities, so watch out for that. For the -2, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a creature card and or land card from among them into your hand, put the rest in the graveyard. And the final ability, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have it fight target creature, then put 3 8/8 blue octopus creature tokens onto the battlefield. This fits the nautical theme, the water theme. This deck, I name all my decks. It's called the Lords of Atlantis. And this has been a game ender for me. If I can get to this final ability and I can put 3 of these 8/8 octopus creatures onto the battlefield, sometimes enough, that's enough to turn the tide, and I can win the game. So that's my Planeswalker. I also like this Planeswalker because it's got a relatively low casting cost. Now, I'm going to go on my Moxfield here. I use Moxfield a lot as a tool. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's www.moxfield.com. They don't pay me. They don't sponsor me, but it is a site that I use and I like. All right, so I'm looking on my Moxfield right now, and I've got a list of all my decks. So I've got everything categorized online. And when you're deck building, an online tool can help a lot. I know some people use Archidect. I use Moxfield, but either way, an online tool can help you a ton. So basically what I'm looking at right now, and you might be able to see this in the corner a little bit, but it's got all my cards listed. It's got the value of each card. It's got the casting cost of each card. But then it's got all kinds of metadata. It's got my deck's total mana value, and that's what I wanted to talk about. The total mana value of this deck is 180. If you're going to make a deck competitive, people talk about templates. People talk about how many lands that you should have, how many creatures you should have, how many removal spells you should have. People talk about these bigger high-level things, but one of the simplest ways you can determine how fast your deck is going to move is the total mana value of the deck. Now, what's the total mana value of the deck? It's all these mana symbols added together. Lands are going to count for 0. This one's going to count for 4. The Seedborn Muse, which we're going to talk about, is going to count for 5. And if you can keep that total mana value of the deck under 200, the deck is going to move really fast. So a lot of times when I'm building competitive decks, I strive to hit that 200 number or under. That's really hard to do with Eldrazi's, with dragons, but it can be done. Sometimes if you go over, you're going to have to make accommodations. You're going to have to add more land. You're going to have to do different things. But this one is under 200, so this deck is going to move super fast. We're done with Planeswalkers. We're going to now move into creatures. The first creature I want to talk about that's a big one in this deck. Now, it's not a Merfolk, but it had to be included. A lot of time when I build these decks, I build them for as much collecting as I do winning, but I still want to make them competitive. And so I always struggle with the balance. Like, this isn't a Merfolk, so should I put it in this deck? But with Kumena, it is too good to not include. This card goes bonkers with Kumena. The Seedborn Muse, untap all permanents you control during each other player's untap step. Well, look at Kumena's abilities. Tap 5 untap Merfolk you control, put a 1/1 counter on each Merfolk you control, or tap 3 untap Merfolk and you draw a card. These absolutely go bonkers in a game, a 4-person game of Commander. 1v1, it works all right. You're playing a 4-person game. This goes absolutely nuts because during each other player's untap step, you untap all your creatures and you can reenact these abilities at instant speed. So if you're building a Merfolk deck based on Kumena, Seedborn Muse is a must include. The Cold-Eyed Selkie. It's got Island Walk, which means it can't be blocked as long as the defending player controls an island. And whenever Cold-Eyed Selkie deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. Got a lot of effects in here to bump up my Merfolk. And this is one of those combo cards. Like, you'll hear people talk about their building templates, and you need stuff for card draw. You need stuff for removal. You need creatures. This acts as card draw and a creature. Bristly Bill, Spine Sower. No, not a Merfolk, but again, it had to be included. Why? Because of that 1/1 counter ability. And that's how we're going to win with Kumena, right? So Bristly Bill, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on a target creature. And then this ability right here, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you can control. That's a major part of my win strategy here. So another great card. Another non-Merfolk. It's the Merfolk deck. I promise you we will get to Merfolk, but we're starting off with a bunch of non-Merfolk creatures. And I actually didn't plan this. I just put all my creatures in a pile, and this is what was at the top. Kinnan Bonder Prodigy, one of those game breaker cards listed by Magic the Gathering as one of the most powerful cards in the game. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that mana produced, so a bit of mana ramp. And then here, for 5 colorless, a green and a blue, you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a non-human creature card from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Not a lot of humans in this deck. It's a Merfolk deck, so this card works really, really well. All right. Now let's get to the actual Merfolk. Thieving Skydiver. I absolutely love this card. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, you gain control of a target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. If that artifact's an equipment, attach it to Thieving Skydiver. A great way to get rid of somebody's artifact. And I kind of count this as removal. It's stealing, but that's removing it from another opponent. So this is another one of those good combo cards. The Merfolk Mistbinder. Other Merfolk you control get +1/+1, so acts as a Merfolk anthem. The Hull Breacher, currently banned. I think it's going to be unbanned. I'm really hoping with this unbanning that's coming up. And by the time you see this video, maybe this card will be unbanned. But I really do love this card, and I included it because it is a Merfolk. It's got flash, and if an opponent would draw a card, except for the first one they would draw in each of their draw steps, you create a treasure token. Some people consider this really oppressive. I honestly don't consider it that much different than Rhystic Study or Smothering Tithe. And I do play with illegal or banned cards because this is part of my collection. And the Hull Breacher, whether you like it, whether you hate it, it's an iconic Merfolk. My play group, we play with banned cards, so it is an auto-include in this deck. Here's one of these left-sided or left-handed magic cards from the Secret Lair. It is Empress Galena, and I can gain control of target legendary permanent. I put this card in for a couple reasons. Number one, I love the Secret Lair releases, and I love the printing of this card. But two, this acts as removal too, because if I can get somebody's legendary permanent, great deal for me. Master the Pearl Trident. Other Merfolk creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Island Walk. A lot of people play with blue, so this is really, really helpful and acts as an anthem. Another one of those cards, Lords of Atlantis. All Merfolk gain Island Walk and get +1/+1. Again, a lot of people play with blue, and it's a Merfolk anthem. The Deep Root Elite. Whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target Merfolk you control. Again, there's that counters theme. You're going to see that heavily throughout this deck. Kopala, Warden of Waves. Spells your abilities cast at target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more to cast. Abilities your opponents activate, the target of Merfolk costs 2 more to cast. A little bit of protection for all my Merfolks on the board. One of the newer cards from Ether Drift. This is a great card. I was so excited when this came out. Of all the cards that came out in Ether Drift, you know, people were talking about the Radiant Lotus again and again and again, or the Ether Spark. I was excited for this one, for my Merfolk deck. The Exhaust ability, which means you can only do it once. Draw X cards. Put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk you control. So that's a really helpful thing for card draw and these 1/1 counters. Kiora, the Rising Tide. When Kiora enters, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. So I'm going to read that again because I got a little distracted. I was actually thinking about this. I'm going to back up a second. The Exhaust, I don't know if I said you could only use it once a turn or once a game, but you can use it once a game unless it goes to your graveyard and you get it back somehow. So just wanted to clarify that. Kiora, the Rising Tide. When Kiora enters, draw 2 cards and then discard 2 cards. Again, card draw. Another one of those combo cards when you're looking at people's building templates. And I don't know if I like building templates or not, but they can be helpful. But again, like how many cards in your deck deal with removal? I've got a couple of Merfolk that deal with those. How many cards deal with your card advantage? All right, this is a combo card, card advantage and a creature. It's got Threshold. Whenever Kiora attacks, if there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, you can create an 8/8 legendary blue octopus creature. So that can be really helpful. Kind of like a good little side event there. Prime Speaker Zagana. Prime Speaker Zagana enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where X is the greatest power among other creatures you control. And when it leaves the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power. Again, a lot of card draw in this deck. Tachova, Benthic Druid. It's got Landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Are you seeing a couple of themes here? Card draw, card draw, card draw. And I promise you, I've said this before, but any deck you're going to build, you can never have too much card draw. But this deck, the way it's designed, I try to choose cards that all work with each other. This is a lot of card draw, a lot of 1/1 counters. Forerunner of the Heralds. When Forerunner of the Heralds enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a Merfolk card, reveal it, then shuffle your library, put that card on top of it. And whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it. So it acts as a bit of a tutor. Not a ton of tutors for creatures in a lot of decks, but I think they can be really helpful. I always try to play a few tutors in every deck I have to get the stuff that I need. Sometimes when you're playing 100 cards, now listen, I've only been playing Commander for a couple of years, but one thing I've learned is enacting your strategy. Yes, you can worry about everyone else's strategy, and that's where things like mass disruption and removal and things come into play. Mass disruption is something like a board wipe, right, where you're going to wipe everybody else, take their creatures away. But a lot of times, I just want to implement my strategy, so tutors really help. Here is Miro Regery. Other Merfolk, you get +1/+1. And whenever you play a Merfolk spell, you can untap a target permanent. So I like things that untap my creatures, especially in this deck with Kumena. Shapers of Nature. You throw a bit of mana on it. You put a 1/1 counter on target creature. And then you throw a bit of mana at it. Remove a 1/1 counter from a target creature you control. And you can draw a card. I'm going to have a ton of 1/1 counters so I can draw a lot of cards. Tower on the Sky Summoner. Whenever I cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. I like this card because I want some more flyers in this deck. One of the weaknesses of Merfolk, there's not a lot of flyers. If someone has a flying deck, it can be bad for me. This is a great card. This is one of the creatures I will tutor for if somebody else on the board uses a lot of flyers. This is a big one in this deck. The Harbinger of the Seas from Modern Horizons 3. Non-basic lands are islands. A lot of my stuff has the island walkability in this deck. So I want to, if I'm playing somebody who doesn't have islands, I want to make them have islands. Thassa, God of the Sea. Indestructible, and as long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, it isn't a creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. Just being able to look a turn ahead is hugely valuable. And then target creature you control can't be blocked this turn. If I can make this unblockable, or one of my creatures unblockable, sometimes I can win the game for me. So I really, really like this card. Svellion of Sea and Sky. It has indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other Merfolk, and when it attacks, draw a card. Other Merfolk you control have Ward 1, so a great ability to protect my Merfolk and card draw engine. Thracius, Triton Hero, scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, draw a card. All right, so again, card draw. I know there's a lot of people that use that as a commander, especially because it has partner in it, and that could be a great Merfolk commander too. I just like Kumena better. Voldalian Hexcatcher, other Merfolk get +1/+1, and then I can sacrifice a Merfolk and I can counter target non-creature spell unless its controller plays 1. Super useful for defense. Tishana's Tidebender. Whenever Tishana's Tidebender enters the battlefield, counter up to 1 target activated or triggered ability. If an ability of an artifact, creature, or planeswalker is countered this way, that permanent loses all abilities for as long as Tishana's Tidebender remains on the battlefield. So kind of like a mini Pithing Needle as well. Someone wants to do something to me and I can cast this, I can wipe that creature out for the game unless they get rid of this. All right, Herald of Secret Streams, enormous in this deck. Not really good in a deck that doesn't have 1/1 counters, but anything that has a 1/1 counter on it, my creatures can't be blocked. This is usually a game ender for me. All right, Emperor Mihail II. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You can cast Merfolk decks from the top of your library, so a bit of card advantage. And whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you can pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token. You can never have too many Merfolks in this deck. All right, Storybook Banneret, Island Walk, Merfolk spells and wizard spells cost 1 less to play. And then finally, the last non-Merfolk creature, but an auto-include in this. All green creatures get +1/+1. All blue creatures get +1/+1. And untap all green or blue creatures you control during each other's player's untap step. Massive card, again, like the Seedborn Muse, to untap my creatures so I can use those abilities with Kumena and ideally, you know, enact my plan and win the game. So we just went over creatures. Now we're going to go over artifacts. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. This deck, I mean, this card could honestly go in any deck, but great for 1/1 counters. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate abilities of creatures you control. And then creatures you control with 1/1 counters on them all have activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. All right, I have a lot of creatures with 1/1 counters on them, and I'm going to be exiling a lot of stuff with Agatha's Soul Cauldron, so this is going to be really, really helpful. An exile target card from a graveyard, not just my graveyard, any graveyard, so a little bit of graveyard hate in there. That card I literally could put in every deck I play. It's been so useful. I think it's one of the best cards ever released for the Commander format. Honestly, I think it's underrated. Surprised it wasn't on the Game Changers list. Arcane Signet, little mana wrap. Jeweled Lotus, little mana wrap. Again, an illegal card, a banned card, but I play with banned cards. Sapphire Medallion. Blue spells cost me 1 less to cast, so not ramp specifically, but helps me get stuff out quicker. The Herald's Horn helps me get stuff out quicker. Sensei's Divining Top helps me look at the top of my library and manipulate a little bit to get stuff I need, so a little bit of card advantage. The Adamantium Bonding Tank, aka the Ozolith. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Adamantium Bonding Tank. At the beginning of the combat on your turn, if Adamantium Bonding Tank has counters on it, you can move them and put them onto a target creature. So if one of my guys dies, I can still get those counters. Conda's Banner, I like this card, especially with a 2-color commander. All right, so basically creatures that share a color type with the equipped creature get +1/+1, and creatures that share a creature type with the equipped creature get +1/+1, and I'll usually put that on my commander. Soul Ring, no explanation necessary. Ozolith, the Shattered Spire. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters be put on an artifact or creature you control, put that many +1, and then I can put more counters on creatures, and it's got cycling, so super great card for March of the Machine for a counter deck. And I've also got a Hardened Scales deck that's built on counters, and that was an auto-clued as well. And then Coat of Arms. It is one of those creature anthems. The only danger with Coat of Arms, I struggle with this. Sometimes I use a Vanquisher's Banner. Sometimes I use, Adore Destinies. One thing I struggle with Coat of Arms is it's not asymmetrical. So if you're playing against somebody with goblins, they are going to get a kick for all of their goblins as well. But it's a great card. And I only have so many cards. Like I only have so many Doors of Destinies. I only have so many Vanquisher's Banners. I chose Coat of Arms for this one because that is the creature anthem that I had left. And honestly, when you're building decks, sometimes that happens. Like sometimes you just don't have enough cards. Like, would I like an unlimited? This actually came up in my comments the other day. Someone said like, hey, why didn't you put a deflecting SWAT in your goblin deck? Because I didn't have enough deflecting SWATs. I had already used one in my vampire deck. I had already used one in my treasure deck. It's like I kind of ran out, and that happens. And so sometimes, maybe even if it's not the best decision, you have to make a decision based on the cards you have available. And that happens because I'm playing with real cards. That's one of my frustrations. Some of these videos with the graphics, like they have great ideas, but you have unlimited building potential because you could just pick whatever card you want off the internet and put a graphic up and you're like, this is the optimal include. But when you're actually building with real stacks of cards, let me get a stack over here. When you're like looking through these, trying to figure out what you're going to use. Oh, by the way, Psychic Frog, another great card, auto include in a lot of black-blue decks. But when I have to look through this to try and figure out like, ooh, what card fits better, sometimes it's not about what's optimal. It's about what's optimal for what you have available. So just something to keep in mind. So we've went over the creatures. We've went over the artifacts. We've went over the planeswalkers. Let's talk about the enchantments. Reflections of Litjara. When it enters, pick a creature type. I'm obviously going to pick Merfolk. And then when I cast a spell of the chosen type, I copy that spell. So a way to make more Merfolk. Hardened Scales. If one or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature you control, put that many +1. So super useful card in a counter deck. I actually have a deck named Hardened Scales after this card. Simic Ascendancy, big win condition in this deck. I can put a 1/1 counter on target creatures I control. Whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on a creature you control, put that many growth counters on Simic Ascendancy. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Simic Ascendancy has 20 or more growth counters, you win the game. I've won the game a bunch with this deck with this card. So auto include in Kumena. Arcane Adaptation. As Arcane Adaptation enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're going to choose Merfolk. Creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other types. The same is true for creature spells you control and creature spells you own that aren't on the battlefield. So just a little kick to some of those creatures that I have that are not Merfolk. Court of Garenbrig, another +1/+1 counter card. I become the monarch when it enters the battlefield. And at the beginning of your upkeep, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among 2 target creatures. Then if you're the monarch, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. Insanely powerful for a counter deck. Deep-Root Waters. Whenever I cast a Merfolk spell, I create another Merfolk creature token with hexproof. Rhystic Study, game breaker card. Whenever an opponent plays a spell, you may draw a card unless that player plays one. Great for card advantage. Doubling Season, auto include in this deck. If an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. If an effect would, and this is the one I really want, by the way, because this deck generates a few tokens, but not a ton. If an effect would put one or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many counters on that permanent instead. Tribute to the World Tree. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. If its power is 3 or greater, you draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, put 2 1/1 counters on it. Unstoppable Plan. At the beginning of your end step, untap all non-land permanents you control. So another one of those untap cards works great with Kumena. Sylvan Library, a great way to manipulate cards and get some extra cards. So Sylvan Library is a great one for green. Now we'll go to Sorceries and Instants. Raise the Palisade. Choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't that type are going back to their owner's hands, so an asymmetrical board wipe. Force of Will, arguably one of the greatest counters ever created, and in a deck that's heavy blue, super useful. Force of Negation, another great counter. If it's not my turn, I exile a blue card from my hand rather than pay this spell's mana cost, and I can counter a non-creature spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it. Planar Genesis. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land card from among them onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't, put a card from among them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I promise you will never not need this card. It's a great card. Flare Denial, another great counter. Mystical Tutor, a way to look for instants or sorceries in my deck. Counterspell. Cyclonic Rift, I can remove something from the board, or I can remove a bunch of things from the board. So single targeted disruption or mass disruption. Fierce Guardianship, another great counterspell. And I like to play in a competitive deck. I like a lot of counterspells because you got to prevent people from doing what they do. I talked about tutors and I want to enact my plan, but in a blue deck, I'll use a lot of counter spells to try and mess with other people. Worldly Tutor, a tutor to go get that creature I need. And then Inspiring Call, devastating card for an uncommon. Draw a card for each creature you control, +1/+1 counters on it. Those creatures gain Instructable until the end of turn. Funny enough, this card's not worth very much, but it is a major win condition of this deck, so I love it. Now lands. I'll cover the basic lands first. So I've included some basic lands in here. Nice little Godzilla one from Secret Lair. Now let's talk about the special lands, all right? The non-basic lands. There's not a lot of non-basic lands in here. In Commander, I do play a lot of non-basics. Sunken Citadel enters the battlefield tapped. As it enters, choose a color, add 1 mana of the chosen color, add 2 mana of the chosen color, spend this ability only to activate abilities of land sources. Kind of a cool card. Don't use it a ton, but it is sunken, so it lives in the ocean, so it had to go in this deck, if I'm just being honest with you. Sometimes I'll put a card like this, and by the way, this can be a useful card, because I do have some lands that have activated abilities. So it's not that it's not useful, it's just sometimes I put a card in for the collecting, and honestly, if I took this out of the deck, I don't think it would change the landscape of the deck that much, but I just really like it. Castle of Antris. Castle of Antris enters the battlefield tapped unless you control an island. You can add an island, or you can pay a bunch of mana and scry 2. Misty Rainforest. Adventurous Fair allows me to fetch artifacts. That can be super useful. Wasteland, a way to destroy somebody else's non-basic land. Dark Depths had to go in this deck only because when you transform it, it turns into Merit Lage. So another great, great card. Love this card. This can be a win condition. It doesn't come up much, but again, I had to include it because this is an ocean-based deck. The Dark Depths had to be included. Botanical Sanctum, Rejuvenating Springs, Command Tower, the greatest land of all time in Commander. Ottawa, Soaring City, an auto-include in any blue deck. Yavimaya Coast, the Command Beacon. Thespian Stage, that's the combo I wanted to talk about. You can instantly enact Dark Depths with the Thespian Stage. This is one of the oldest school common combos in Magic, and I love this combo, so there we go. You can also do it with a Vampire Hexmage or the Mutated Cultist, but don't have those in this deck because there's no black. We got the Mutavault, Bosaijo Who Endures, the Flooded Grove, Cavern of Souls, make my creature spells uncounter. You can't counter, I almost lost my wording there, it happens. You can't counter my creature spells. My Merfolk are safe with that deck. That's an auto include in any Kinfolk type deck. I almost had a glitch there, like genuinely. All right, Breeding Pool, Tide Channel Pathway, one of those dual-sided lands. Nyx, Shrine to Nyx, huge card for mana ramp. Tap 2, choose color, add to your mana pool an amount of mana that color equal to your devotion to that color could produce. So with blue or green in this deck, this is going to rock. The Willow Rust Verge and the Seagate. It enters the battlefield tapped. As Seagate enters the battlefield, choose a color other than blue, and then you add blue or 1 mana, the mana of the chosen color. Now, I'd prefer a straight dual land, but this had to go in because it is the Seagate, and this is a deck from the sea. So that is my Merfolk deck. Really, really good. It works really well. Make sure if you're going to build this, the first 2 auto-includes that I would put for Kumena are the Merc Fiend Liege and also that Seedborn Muse to untap to help with Kumena's Tyrant of Orazca. But remember all your +1/+1 counter support. So that is my Merfolk deck. I would love to hear from you. Here's the thing with building decks. I don't just build decks to win. I build them to collect. And this is a way for me to feature my collection. And that's why you'll see sometimes, I actually can't even remember if I included it in this deck, but I do not have a 1 ring in this deck. And you might be thinking, Bobby, where's the 1 ring? Like, that's necessary in a card draw deck. And you're sure, you're right. But I only have so many 1 rings. I'll actually tell you how many I have by logging into my Mox field. All right, you can search any cards or decks in this. And let's see, the 1 ring. How many I have? Okay, I have 15 1 rings. Now, that's a lot. I have a huge collection, but I only have 15 of them. I have 50 commander decks. I would put the 1 ring in all 50 commander decks, but I only own 15 of them. So it couldn't go in this deck. And sometimes that's the thing about building decks. I'll often ask you guys, like, hey, what would you include in this deck? And sometimes you give me great ideas and I actually include them and shout you out. So thank you for that. It really helps. But sometimes, no, I thought of that and I just didn't own the card at the time. I forgot about it. It didn't go in because I wanted to put one of my pet cards in, and that's totally okay. People are constantly talking about what you should do when you build decks, what you shouldn't do, how you should build a deck, what's the right way, what's the wrong way. There's no right or wrong way. Actually, there is a right way. As long as you're having fun and you're proud of your collection and you like playing with your deck, that's the right way to go. So when I build my decks, you might think they're insane, and I hope you get some good ideas from my decks. I think they're reasonably well constructed. But if you've got some other ideas for me, I am always happy to look them over. And who knows, maybe I'll build a secondary Merfolk deck. So thank you for coming to Muscles and Magic the Gathering. Make sure to leave your comments below, and I'll see you for the next episode.